Kia ora and welcome to Wahine, a podcast celebrating wahine in business who are carving their own path with intention, courage and vision. This is Wahine Legacy Leadership. O tēnā kōrua, nau mai hara mai ki te hōtaka a Wahine. It is such a pleasure to have you join me on the podcast today. Thank you so much for agreeing to sit down and have this conversation. To kick us off, I always like to hand the microphone over to my guests and get you to introduce yourselves. So, Charlotte, why don't we start with you?
Okay. Kia ora, my name is Charlotte. I am one half of Pompom Events Marketing, and I'm based here on the sunny Kapiti coast with three boys, my husband, and a dog and a cat.
Wonderful. And I'm the other half of Pompom Events Marketing, and my name is Natalie Rutini. I'm based the other end of the North Island up in Tauranga in the Bay of Plenty. Been here for, I think, probably about 8 years with my husband, raising a couple of teenage boys. And yeah, great to be here and lovely to see you again, Sandra.
I know. We were just saying before we hit record about, seeing each other every week until the last 18 months. And then it's just all been a bit silent. So it's lovely to see both of your faces again. And yeah, when I was thinking about who can I have on the podcast, I, landed on both of you because I'm like, you've got a really great story to tell. And having a partnership in business isn't something that I see a lot of at the moment, so it's either big organisations that are led by a person or even community organisations led by a person, or people have gone out into business on their own, but actually running a partnership that's even not a husband and wife team is not something I see a lot of. So I'm like, this is going to be a fun conversation. And also knowing a bit about your business as well and knowing you two, I was like, great, I'm sure they'll let me dive into the behind the scenes of what their business looks like in reality. So to get us kick-started, I really love you to tell the listeners about your business, what you do, who you serve, and how you make your moolah.
Should I kick us off then?
You go.
So yeah, Pompom Events Marketing basically says it in the name. We do a lot of events, program management, manage marketing, graphic design for clients. So we work over quite a wide area. We've got a great team of people behind us with specialised skills in some of the different areas. And we mostly predominantly work in the community sector. We started out coming up 8 years ago, I think in November, with a desire to do good things in the community. If we were going to give up our time to be away from our children, we both had young children at that point, we wanted it to be meaningful. And, over a brunch and a cup of coffee, Charlotte and I quickly realised that we shared, those values and that desire to make positive impact in the community. And Pompom Events Marketing was born off the back of that conversation, really. We started in the Waikato, and probably 6 months in, Charlotte, I think I moved to the Bay of Plenty. And then another 6 months later, Charlotte said, I'm off to the Kapiti coast. So it was quite interesting. It was like, oh, gosh, that was our stronghold. That was where our networks were. How are we going to make this work? Are we going to make this work? And yeah, we did. And it's great. So we've got pretty good coverage now over the North Island. We do a little bit in the South Island, but we're predominantly North Island operating, Bay of Plenty, Kapiti, Wellington, Waikato, Auckland, wherever the work takes us. But it's been great to kind of have that team actually spread across. And remote working is now the norm, isn't it, really? Like a lot of people do it. So we probably jumped the gun on that a little bit 8 years ago, working remote. Yeah.
Nice. And so that impact that you want to make, talk to me a little bit more around what that looked like. So when you thought about going into business and doing this together, what was the ultimate impact that you wanted to make?
I think we'd both had corporate roles until that point. And I think this is a little bit stereotypical for women of the age that we were, unfortunately, at the time. But we both hit a point in our careers where we were like, all we're really achieving is kind of creating profit for a company and or an organization. And we wanted to do more than that, I guess, and particularly for areas that we are passionate about. And the two kind of focus areas for our organization are youth and the environment. They're probably our two sort of stronghold passion areas. There's plenty of others that we kind of break into, but they were probably the two ones. And I think what we found was that we wanted to do things in the community to really impact the community and I guess kind of have some positive impact that would really, change things. So still running our business, still providing for our families, ticking all the boxes that you have to tick, but at the same time, kind of managing to use those skills for those that kind of really needed them and that it was going to be impactful for in a wider sense. We both have really enjoyed doing stuff, particularly in our own communities. And we have at times kind of diverged out of that and always seem to kind of find ourselves coming back to that kind of area, because I think that's something that you just get something far beyond just your usual job satisfaction from, when it's, all those connections and how it's all weaved in to your life and the kind of fabric of your day to day. It's just really amazing to be able to work on projects that that are all connected within your own communities.
And that's very much what I got from you both, when we worked together, was that sense of community and surrounded by community. So I love that that's, what really motivates you and pushes you forward into doing good work in the world. So I want to come back to a little bit that you said before. Sat down over a cup of coffee and the business was born. So tell me a little bit about what brought you to the coffee table in the first place. How did you meet and know each other that led to that conversation out of which the business was born?
I think, I moved to New Zealand over 14 years ago. And when we moved to New Zealand, our middle son was just about to turn 4, and it was his 4th birthday. And we had moved in with my sister temporarily on a farm in Tirau. And I said to her, he wants a birthday party. What are we going to do? We don't know anyone. Like, who are we going to invite to this birthday party? And she was as quickly like, don't worry. Like, there's so many families on the farm. We're just going to invite everybody on the farm. I was like, okay. So she invited everybody on the farm. And one of the family also invited their sisters who had children similar ages. And one of those sisters was Natalie. So that kind of was the first time we met. Our children ended up at the same school. We ended up moving into the same town and kind of continued the friendship, I think. And then, and then Natalie, you touched on how that happened over brunch earlier. So I'll let you pick that up.
Well, I think it was your birthday. I think we went out for the birthday brunch. And at that point, we were crossing over in a couple of contracts, weren't we? Like I was working with somebody that Charlotte had previously worked with, and there was just a little bit of crossover happening. So we sat down, and I'd go into an organisation after Charlotte had left, and I'd go, oh, it's like Charlotte's still here, because we work really similarly, like in a similar kind of manner. We approached things quite similar. So that had come up a few times, and we just started talking about it. Like, it's a lot of hours to be away from your young kids. And if you're not feeling it and you're not feeling like it's ticking some of those boxes, I don't know, I think we just kind of started talking on that topic, really, wasn't it? And maybe we should go into business together. Maybe we should look at supporting charities. Maybe we should. And so we're having this conversation, and a mutual contact was a couple of tables over. I think it was actually her son's cafe. And she came over and she said, I'm sorry, but I kind of overheard your whole conversation. I think it's a great idea. I've actually got a contract for you. She was with the Chamber of Commerce at the time. The catch is basically the proposals are in. You'd need to get it to me by 9 o'clock tonight. And the interviewing was at like the next day or something. Like, it was crazy. So we're going, oh my gosh, here was this idea to, right, are we going to do it? And we did. We put the proposal together within hours that night, got it across, turned up at the interview, pitched, got the role, and we started. It's just,
oh my gosh,
one of those moments in life, right?
Cafe conversation led to a contract. That's crazy.
So have loud conversations in cafes. That's the lesson.
Yeah, the lesson, the takeaway from that one. Yeah, have really loud conversations with the work that you want.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about what you both did before Pompom, because, I heard you say you went into the role after Charlotte had been there, Natalie. So what's the common piece that you were both doing before starting Pompom that led to starting an event marketing company?
Yeah. We crossed over on, it was actually a really, is a wonderful environmental project in the Waikato called Sanctuary Mountain. And Charlotte actually went in and did an event, like an outdoor event piece with them.
It's one of my favorites to date.
Yeah. And then I think about 6 months, a year later, I think they contacted you, didn't they, Charlotte? And you were like, actually, I can't. But
yeah,
Nat been on maternity leave. And so, I went in and did more like it was a business development piece, really, in essence, with them, kind of marketing business development. They were looking at sort of increasing their tourism arm of their business. So I went in and drove that for a time and worked with a lot of the same team members that Charlotte did. So that's when I started hearing, gosh, it's just like having Charlotte here. And then I did another map. So I can't do map cover. I did another map cover for Charlotte with an organisation in Hamilton. But it was the same thing. I went in for 12 months and did it, and then Charlotte came back in after 12 months. And it was like just change of guard, which was quite funny. So, that was the work that we crossed over. They were actually both in the community sector, though. So we both touched on doing parts of like comms, marketing, sales events in the community sector previously, and amongst other corporate roles we held, which I think gave us enough of a taste to go, oh, that's what we want. Like the one in Hamilton was in the intellectual disability sector. And, the people that they supported and the care workers, that were on the front line were incredible people. That I think we both loved some of those roles. It was like, how can we do more of that, and how can we reach more of those people, kind of thing, I think.
Yeah, because prior to that, we'd both had much more corporate careers. Like my career in England had been very corporate in the event management space. I did about 6 or 7 years for the same company back there before I moved here. And then my role here before the charity, again, a very corporate based role in Hamilton. And then, like Natalie said, we both kind of picked up these kind of more not-for-profit, I guess, type roles. And I think, like you said, that gave us a bit of a taste of like, there is like more out there. Like there's, there's a way that we can use our skills and kind of bring home the bacon but in a much more fulfilling, meaningful kind of way that links through to our values.
I think we also saw a gap as well, like, you know, we know charities are under-resourced, both financially and human resources at times, and there's simply not budget to have somebody 40 hours sitting in the marketing chair, for example, but they have like certain pieces that they just need to push, like fundraising events or different things. So instead of them having to kind of go, oh, we've got to commit to this like annual salary, how can we just jump in and do the pieces most important so that they can keep running their BAU? So I think that's where we saw the gap a little bit as well. Like, yeah, to be able to step in and then step out as their budget and their needs
allowed.
for,
So when it comes to, you got your first contract and you're like, all right, let's just work out how we do this, how we work together, good kind of learning grounds. You obviously came out of that contract and went, oh, this is doable. Like, we can do this. Let's look for the new work. Because you could have come out of that contract going, this isn't going to work. This is not us. Let's go our separate ways. What did you learn during the delivery of that first contract that kind of solidified the idea of being in business together?
Good question.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever thought that we weren't going to continue.
No, I was
It just kind of carried on,
and grew. It just, even within that first contract, we had gained some memento, because we both started doing it alongside another role, and then we kind of managed to get it to a point where we could get out of our other roles and just do it all the time. And it just kind of very organically grew. And I don't know if there were, like, which is a bit odd, but I don't know if there really were any kind of key learnings. I think, like Natalie said, it just kind of organically flew. I don't think we ever thought that it wasn't going to work. Our values were so similar, and our working ways, and I think our work ethic, probably most importantly, possibly, was so aligned that there weren't, and actually I would say still to this day, there weren't really any significant obstacles that I felt like we needed to overcome, that you know, anything that wasn't working, I guess. I'm not saying that there have never been things that we've had to work through, because there have, but you know, there were never any like core obstacles, or like, oh, we do things quite differently, or we're going to have to adapt this, or we're going to have to change this because you know, the other person does it this way. And I think perhaps because we had that overlap in those contracts, we kind of maybe knew that already a little bit. We'd had other people say it to us, and
So really unique situation that landed you in business together because of how closely you'd worked in other organizations. Like, I think that is unique in terms of how you followed each other, or one went in after the other into other organizations. So I can see how that landed.
I know. And like, I don't know, you would have had the same, Charlotte. I remember talking to people right at the start. There wouldn't have been time to talk to them before we launched, because we did it overnight. But right at the start, it was like, oh, you're going into business with a friend, like a good friend. You sure that's a good idea? Like, oh, I've heard these stories, and everybody's got a story about it, right? And it was like, oh, you let that information settle on you, and you hear, you know, you listen and hear. But I really felt quite strongly that that wouldn't be the case. I knew Charlotte's values, and I knew the type of communicator she was, and we've always been really transparent. We've never shied away from difficult conversations, or, you know, it's always been really big on, like, if something's there for you, let's put it on the table straight away. We don't let things fester. And I knew that was the case. And I thought, yes, I hear you, and I agree that could be the case for a lot of people. Don't do it. But it didn't feel like that. And it hasn't been like that. So we've been really lucky, I think, that we chose the right person to go into business with.
What have been some of the challenges that you've faced in the last 8 years of, doing business together?
I think that Natalie and I are both, things being fair and equitable is quite important to both of us. And so I think that we have worked very hard to always make sure within the partnership that things are fair, whether that's hours, whether that's remuneration, whether that's workload, whether that's travel, whatever it might be. I think we've always tried really hard to make sure that things are fair, because I think that's possibly the biggest area that could be a problem in a partnership. And we spoke to other businesses that said, oh, we don't worry about that. We just go, oh, it's roughly the same, or it's roughly the, blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. Like, I think, we worked hard and still do work hard. And sometimes like a little bit painstakingly so, to keep it extremely fair, because we're both details driven individuals. So we kind of really have, so I think that's the area that can cause problems in partnerships across any of those things. One person carrying more workload, one person doing more hours than the other, one person getting paid more than the other, or having a nicer car than the other, or whatever it might be. I think that is the potential pothole for people. And we, like Natalie said, have definitely had to have some challenging conversations in that space over the time, where we've been put in situations because of certain contracts that have come through, or certain things that might have happened, and we definitely had to have challenging conversations. But I think at the heart of it, we've always wanted what's right for both of us. And I think both of us have always had that mindset that like, well, yeah, I do want that, but I don't want it at the detriment of it having a negative effect for you and your farm. So how can we kind of do that in a way that, yes, I'm going to benefit and I'm going to be able to tick that box for me, but it also keeps it fair for you. And I think we've both always had that same kind of values. And I think that we are very open communicators. We're probably too quick to communicate sometimes. We probably over communicate sometimes. But I think the positive side to that trait is that, like Natalie said, as soon as something settles on one of us, whatever it might be, we're very quick to bring it to the table. Like, it doesn't sit and fester. We're very quick to say, like, oh, and it's happened with things like, most recently, I would say Natalie had a higher number of clients on her kind of workload to manage. So I had fewer clients with bigger pieces, and Natalie had more clients with smaller pieces. And that can be quite challenging from a mind perspective, because if you've got more projects to juggle, yes, you might only have smaller pieces of work potentially, but like, it's a lot to carry in your mind, and I just, so things like that that's the kind of thing that might come up, and Natalie might voice, I'm actually finding, this is quite challenging. I've got a lot of people that I need to give my love to, and I want to give it to them all in a way that they deserve. And so how can we address this? And we'll just kind of, like in this particular instance, we had plenty of capacity across the team, and we were able to kind of move things around and juggle things to relieve some of that. So I think there's been plenty of examples of that kind of thing over the year, or how can we keep it so that we're both doing similar hours and one person's not doing more than the other, or one person's not having to do more event delivery than the other, or travel more than the other. There's been so many examples of the need to keep things fair and us having to have those kind of conversations. But I think at the heart of it, it just comes back to the fact that like we both always wanted the best for each other as well as ourselves. So I think that the root of that has always sailed us through.
Yeah. I think we've been quite lucky too, like, and we've commented on this over the years, that when we don't ever seem to both be in the weeds at the same time in a way. You can be with, as in like peaks and troughs with events. So you've got your busy event weeks, or you've got your, but usually there's one of us that's like, I've got this. That's okay. Give me that. What can I do to help you? I have space. And one of us that's like, help. But we're never kind of in it at the same time. So I don't know why it's worked out like that, but it does feel like when I've needed Charlotte to step up because I'm like, actually, I'm really struggling with this, or I've got this going on in my personal life, so I just need this space to breathe to get through this, or whatever it is, and vice versa. The other one has been in the headspace in a position to go, that's okay. What can I do? Which has been a blessing. And just not letting it fester. I think we're just, I would just say that to anybody, not even in business. It's like, if you feel it and it's there, voice it, find the solution, move on. Let those kind of things fester away. Can only ever be damaging to a relationship, right?
And the fact that you operate your relationship virtually, with one being in Tauranga and the other being in Kapiti, and your team are fully remote, how has that had an impact on how you operate your business, how your partnership runs?
Yeah, I mean, we've done it in a variety of ways over the years. Like, for a while there, we used to do a thing called the Daily Dose, and we'd catch up and we'd do like a little daily check-in. We did that for quite some time. We probably don't do it as structured as that anymore. I think we've got our definite roles and areas of the business and account kind of leads that we take, that we're probably not needing to check in as often on the day-to-day operation or things with clients. I think it's a little bit more organic now in our kind of weekly, monthly catch-ups, but we do try and make time sort of at least once a year. We aim for twice to actually get together in person. We usually try and meet somewhere halfway up the country and go out for dinner and spend, a day or so actually working on the business, like pull out the business strategy, pull out the business plan, how are we tracking, where are the pain points, is this still true, and kind of set the tone for the next 6 months. So although it is remote and sometimes we've done those check-ins remote, it's so lovely to get together in person and the conversations and the laughs, and it just makes it kind of all worthwhile. So that's probably kind of how we've tried to manage the relationship in terms of, staying on the same page.
And I think with the team, it's been similar, really. Like, we have team members that I guess we're kind of responsible for. So team members that are working on one of the contracts that we're leading. So we have weekly catch-ups usually with our team members, just to make sure that, they're all on track, and kind of checking in with them. And then similar, probably, we'll try and do occasional, catch-ups or whatever. And we just try and be present a little bit with what is going on, like if there was a particular time with a project where we had a lot of weekend work with one particular client, and it was rolling over like every weekend. So it's like someone's mum was doing a lot of weekend work with the grandchildren, so let's send her some flowers, or like, I think it's just being mindful of what's going on in each of the team members' lives a little bit, and or remembering to reach out on their birthdays or whatever it might be. Like, we're really fortunate, like Natalie said at the beginning, to have attracted contractors to our team that have very similar values and approaches to their work and their work ethics. And so I think it's important, like, that you kind of value that, I guess, and make sure you hang on to them, because I mean, really, any business is only as good as their team. Like,
So you said there you've got contractors. So do you have a team of external contractors rather than employees? Because that's a huge question when it comes to small business owners. I did a whole episode with Justine from Your VA, and we talked just about that, contractors versus employees and the pros and cons of both. I just heard you say contractors. So do you have a team of contractors versus employees? And what led you down that pathway?
We've toyed with that a few times, and still are, I think, a little bit, Natalie, aren't we, in terms of, but so far, I think that seems to work best for us and the people that are our contractors. So, often they will have other commitments. So whether that's, that they're running another contract, or whether it's that they've got family commitments, or, whatever it might be, it just seems to have worked better for us, I think. Events as well is a business that has lots of peaks and troughs, and we're really fortunate in the sense that, because we do a lot in the not-for-profit space, we tend to wear more hats than being the event manager. So we're often the operations manager or the program manager. So there's other buckets of work that we're responsible for outside of events, but even still, there's definitely like a bit of a flow, with pressure points and then things ebbing off a little bit. And I think contracting has just worked better for us and the team in terms of managing that, and in terms of them managing their own commitments as well. We've definitely, like I said, looked down the employee route, but so far for the people that we're working with, this seems to work better for them, and better for us, really. So we've kept it with that model for the time being.
And so how does that work in practicality in terms of, are they on a bit of a retainer with you, or is it you land a new job and then you go, okay, well, we're going to need this resource, this resource, this resource. Let's reach out to the team, see if they've got availability, bring them on board. Like, how do you keep that consistent team on board when events are such a, highs and lows of work? How do you keep the team on board?
We do,
I guess we've got, like Charlotte was saying, we've got some contracts that we do a lot more than just the event. So we've got, a baseline of just ongoing annual, some of them we've been doing for quite a few years now, that we kind of have a baseline level of output required for our business. We always know, we've got a couple of markers, I guess. What is your ideal hours? What are your lowest hours you can go to? And what are the highest hours you can go to? And we try and work in the ideal space for the most of it, but we know what the capacity is on event week. So we bring in this short piece and we go, hey, are you okay to go to your capacity? And then we'll get you back next month. But it is conversational. Like, we do always check in with people, like, how are you doing? What have you got going on the month, 6 months ahead? Where are you at? Are these hours still true, for you? So it is kind of like that. But I think we have shrunk and grown at different times over the years. I mean, business with events in the name coming through COVID was, you know what that's like, Sandra.
Yeah.
So we have shrunk and grown a couple of times over the years, but I feel like it's always happened quite organically for the team too. Like, we've had team members that have said, I just want to do projects. I'm happy to come in and do this big piece. I'm happy to come in over winter, for example, because they might have a business that operates in summer and work on these things, but then let me go and then contact me again. So we've got some people like in the wings that we've worked with for a lot of years that kind of have that flexibility within their life to kind of jump in and jump out. Yeah.
But then we also have our steadies, like you were saying, who cover our BAU. So we've got people that are on contracts every single week for 48 weeks of the year kind of thing that, are our kind of everyday BAU. And then like Natalie said, we've also got some like specialist contractors, I guess, who do more specialist work, who jump in for particular pieces. But it's great to have a team that can manage the BAU with some flex, because one of the things that we've learned is the importance of that over the years in terms of, not growing your team and then landing a contract and then drastically trying to like recruit and then not always having the right outcome because, you haven't kind of allowed the correct amount of time to kind of, to allow that to happen and to allow due diligence and to allow so we've definitely learned over the years the importance of making sure that you've got capacity within your team to maintain everyone's like well-being and sit within the ideal, like Natalie said, as much as possible, but also to allow for that flow of if something comes in, we can actually manage it right now. Like we can take it on next week and our team can manage it. Because there's nothing worse than trying to hastily recruit for something when you've got a contract about to start. And
it is tricky to navigate, like no doubt. I think we do it fairly well and we've got a really good team around us, but it is always kind of monitoring what's coming down the pipeline and what your capacity is, right? Yeah. What's happening and what's about to come out, and is anybody affected by that? Just got to be honest.
The upside to that, the upside to contractors is that once you have a contract, then you can pay contractors, and when the contract is finished and you're waiting for the next one, there's no paying of staff to retain that staff, if you like, so the different balances of what the output to the contract is, and all the staff are being paid by contractual outputs as opposed to having to maintain a payroll regardless of the input of contracts, so
and saying that, like some of the contractors, I guess, like to answer your retainer comment, some of them we do have a baseline, like this is the baseline hours in there, because we do have ongoing client work, so it never completely would dry up, like it does flow through. So there is, I guess there's a few that have retainers, and then like I said, there's a couple that actually they don't want to do the ongoing BAU stuff so much. They just want to come in and run that project or run that piece, do that event, and they're kind of happy to just take it as it comes. But there is some retainer hours, you're right, because you would be at the risk of losing really good people without that.
Yeah, and that's the way up, I think. So I think you've done a really good job of maintaining some key team members and finding that balance between what they want and what you need. So it sounds like you're doing a really good job there. I want to come back to the point you just raised a little before. It was around workload in the partnership. What does that look like in terms of not necessarily client workload, because you're working that out depending on what you've got coming in the door in terms of contracts, but in terms of business responsibility? So there's a few things that need to go into running a business, and it's all about the business planning, the finance, the sales and marketing, the team. So how does that workload fall between the two of you?
We take it, I wouldn't say quite month by month, but depending on what the account load is like and who's got more capacity to do some of the background things. But I think we've actually both worked on all areas of the back end of the business. And I think it's really important because then you understand what the processes are. Like, for example, like the accounts, the invoicing, and the GST, and the paying the contractors. It might fall to Charlotte, and she might do it for 6 months, and then I'm kind of back in and do it. It just means we're both on the numbers. We know what's going on. We also have like reports and things that we fill out. So if you're on that particular role, you'll just flick the report to the other person. Like, here's at a high level what's gone on this month type thing. So you're both across it. But I think we've both touched in and out, and it probably has been based on capacity. And probably initially we set it up by skill set. Like, you do this because that's going to come more naturally to you, and I'll do that. But then we've crossed over because it's like, well, actually, I want to know what that's about. It's our business. We need to know what's going on, kind of thing. So we've kind of shared it. But now that we're 8 years in it probably is more about capacity, isn't it, Charlotte? Like,
yeah.
Invoicing.
I think,
gosh, who's got time for the invoicing this month? Do you have time for the invoicing? Or something like that kind of thing. Yeah.
I mean, I'm always interested to, know, what that looks like in a partnership, because sometimes there'll be one person in the partnership who's got strengths in a certain area, and so part of that business back end falls by default on that person. But sounds like that's part of your conversations with each other, and how you run your business, being open, transparent, and sharing everything.
Yeah. We've got similar strengths too, right, Charlotte? Like, probably neither of us were like, oh, I'm really good with numbers and I'm into accounting. So that's been a lot of learning for us, like using Xero and running the accounts and forecasting and all of those kind of things. I mean, we're comms, marketing, event kind of people. Like, yes, we have to run budgets, and yes, we are quite good at it, but it's like, it's probably not our natural, like, where we've leaned to for our career. So we kind of share it.
We do. Yeah, we do. Like you said, we kind of both made sure that we could do all of the things. And then now it's very much based on capacity and workload, like in terms of what that looks like each month. But the good thing is, because we set that foundation up, we can do that. One area, I think, Natalie, that never comes back to me though, which I'm not complaining about, I have managed to not get the marketing and comms stuff back. Like, that does tend to sit within our team, which Natalie tends to like have the oversight on, and I haven't had to go back into that space. I did at the beginning, but that's probably the only area, I think, because the particular team member who manages it, Natalie also manages, because they do client work that relates to Natalie's clients. So it just kind of falls, and it kind of always has it.
So does that mean that between the two of you, Natalie, you do more of the marketing client load, and Charlotte, you do more of the events? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think that has kind of happened with clients as well, Nat, hasn't it, really? That I've been more in that project management, event management space, and you are as well. But I would agree with probably what Sandra's just said, that if it's marketing related, it does tend to fall more in your bucket.
Which is interesting, because you're like, Charlotte's actually a really good writer, like really good. And at times over the years, it's been like, gosh, it'd be really nice if you were like doing that, because it is a great skill of yours, but for whatever reason, whether it's been geographical, team member based, it has often come my way. I mean, we both have backgrounds in it, so it's, yeah, it works. You just have to let me know if you ever want it back, Charlotte.
Happy to share the load.
Just tell me.
Nice. Over the last 8 years since the first coffee conversation, which landed you that contract, what is a moment in your journey that you're especially proud of?
There's quite a few.
Yeah.
I mean, this sounds like a little bit cliche, but actually coming out of COVID, when events were just like done, and having still serviced all of the community groups we were servicing going into COVID, and communicating with their audience and finding ways to reach out and still achieve, their KPIs to the best of our ability through that time. I think I will be forever proud of that. A lot of businesses didn't come out the other side, or didn't last very long out the other side, event businesses and different operators, that I think we really got creative on how we approached work for people, and still managed to kind of keep them going through that time, because easiest. But that's a little bit cliche, because everyone's probably like, I survived COVID.
I think mine is possibly now, actually, in a lot of ways, because as we kind of have alluded to a couple of times, we've kind of done a full circle. So we started out the business with that intention of supporting community groups and giving back while still being able to kind of earn a living. And then during the journey, that was challenging from a financial sustainability perspective for the business, because obviously in order to make it viable for those community groups, we're having to do it at significantly discounted rates. So I think at multiple points along the journey, we have explored more corporate work, and we definitely have. We've always had some corporate work, but we've explored, should we be moving in that space more? Like, should we be focusing our energies more on that space, and pulling back a little bit on the community work? But every time we've done that, we've ended up full circling back basically to where we are now, which is that, what sits best with us as individuals is that, we work for everyone and anyone, and happy, we love the corporate stuff that we get to do, but we did start this business to support not-for-profits and to work with community organizations. And actually, when we don't have that in the mix, it doesn't feel quite right. And so I think I'm proud that along this journey, we've kind of learned that lesson, that we kind of know who we are a little bit at this point in the journey. That at this point in the journey, we've explored a number of different avenues, and we actually know who we are, and we're actually comfortable with that. And we're not, necessarily going to be getting lots of big ticket, corporate work, but actually we're comfortable with where we are and who we're servicing and who we're supporting. And actually, that is kind of our little niche. That's kind of our little avenue. So I think I'm proud of that journey that we've come to. Then we've come to that realization, and that we are kind of accepting of that and comfortable with that now, and that we've managed to attract contractors to our team that have those same kind of values and desires. And one in particular is really young, like, she's just out of uni, and but she has that same kind of work ethic. She shares those same values, like, and you'll get feedback from clients on her to that effect as well. Like, so we really seem to have been blessed in terms of attracting people who kind of share who we are I think.
Mm.
And what we do.
Mm. And that's a nice place to be in your business journey, is have landed where you really understand what you do and why that's important. And now you get to double down, you know. So, and I think all businesses go through a journey like that to some degree, in terms of this is what landed us in business. But then when we want to explore lots of different things, only to come back and go, actually, this is the area that brings us joy, and we can make it profitable, and now we get to double down.
Yeah.
So love that little win. How is your, well, what's your understanding of your leadership, and how has that changed over this journey? 8 years in business is, no small feat, and especially in a partnership business. So how's your understanding of leadership evolved over that time?
I think both Charlotte and I are very sort of organized people. You tell us you want to do this thing, and we will very quickly go, okay, so we're going to do this and then this and then this, and break it out. And so I think over the years, I think it's been equipping the team by supporting them, and then trusting and giving them ownership. So we're quite big on, don't come to us with a problem, come to us with what your solution is. If you want to soundboard it, that's great, but giving them ownership, because we do have a team of highly skilled people and they do have experience. I mean, Charlotte touched on Hayley being really young, but gosh, she's doing so well. She's an incredible worker. So having that trust, and actually we've recruited them. They actually know a lot. They know how to do it, and not trying to control every little detail and every little thing, but always being there as a sounding board or guidance, or yep, I've come up against this. This is what I'm thinking to do. What do you reckon? Great. I think it's just that ownership, trying to give people ownership of their space a little bit.
Quietly backed by still having total oversight of what they're actually doing. In a because we are like you are with Monday, we are with Asana, basically. And so that gives us a visibility of our team, I think, that like Natalie said, means that people can have ownership, work remotely, work their own hours, have flexibility, but at any point Natalie and I can jump in to the project management platform and see where they're at with any given task, and kind of, because I think we both do have a degree of not wanting to be in control, but kind of wanting to know, because ultimately we're responsible, for our clients. So we kind of want to know where things are at, and that they're being done in a way that, that aligns with our values and the way that we do business, I guess. So I think that kind of, like Natalie said, that kind of freedom backed by clear communication and clear oversight, and they can do the same to us. They can see our tasks, they can jump into our tasks and see where we're at. So this is a two-way street. But I think that's really important as a team, particularly a team that works remotely, that you can kind of have that oversight of where each other are at without having to be constantly on the phone or constantly on the email chasing up on something. I think there's kind of
it can take new members a little bit to kind of get in the flow of that. And in the beginning, you've got to probably kind of be there a bit more for them. But it's like, I think you probably heard me say this before, Sandra, like it's the hit by a bus scenario. Like if we can't see what's happened and what's been done, then something happens, God forbid somebody gets hit by a bus, we just need to be able to go in and pick it up and support you in the best way possible too, right? So we're really big on, our Asana project management tool and everybody keeping it really up to date. Where are things at? And it just instills trust and faith, I think, and it allows you to support when you have to as well. But I think probably in the earlier days we kind of maybe tried to control it a little bit more, Charlotte. And we've learned kind of support and then try and hand that responsibility over, like this is actually your work.
And we live in this day and age where the technology that we have at our fingertips is phenomenal. It allows us to do so much and have that accountability, transparency in a remote situation. So, I think living in today's world as a business owner, we have never had so many tools at our fingertips to make our life easier. Incredible.
I think back to the days of the paper diary, and you're transferring the thing over to the next page because you still haven't finished it. Like, I can't even imagine clunking that thing around. Have a million notes. We're very lucky.
Yeah. What does legacy mean to you? Maybe individually, collectively?
Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first, Charlotte?
Okay, I think for me, but I mean, I guess this is speaking not from a business perspective. I guess this is speaking for me personally, because I think for legacy-wise, for me, that is quite personal. I think it's about how you'll be remembered and about the kind of footprint that you leave behind. Like, I guess I want to have impact on people or things or situations in a positive way, even if it's a really small way. I want my contribution to have mattered to someone. For me, legacy isn't about money or like what I'm going to leave behind or the kids get 50% of Pompom or whatever that looks like. For me, it's not so much about that. It's more about, I guess, about that kind of footprint that you leave behind, that you left things better than when you came, that you try to kind of have that little piece of impact. And I guess for us in the business sense, we have been very fortunate to be able to create a business that kind of allows us to do that in a small way. And also, we can earn a living that way too. So I think we've been very fortunate to be able to be involved with all these charities, because, we have been involved with some incredible charities over the years and still are. And that is awesome to have been a tiny part of what they're doing in a much bigger picture and a much bigger scale. So I think, I think for me, it's more about that footprint and kind of leaving things better than when we came.
Well, I like that. And it's probably very similar to what I was going to say as well, but I like your term footprint. That's very clever. I think it's just around, for me, living a life that I'm proud of and being a really good example to my kids, all their peers and friends that come and hang out all the time, seeing you work really hard, not being afraid and shying away of hard work, and working for projects that are meaningful and that it's not just about the money. It's so much bigger than that. I think that's, really important. And it's sort of that lasting impression. So like once everything's fallen away, like nobody really remembers what the tagline of the event was or exactly what the bottom line of the budget and the profit was, but they will remember how they felt, how you left them feel, either as a person or if it's our business delivering something. That's what lasts. The little tiny details eventually fall away. So ours are pretty similar, Charlotte.
Very Similar.
So
See, and that's why your partnership works so well. The end goal is very similar. It's been such a great conversation, and I appreciate you sharing like the nitty-gritty details behind your business and how you make your partnership work. And I can see, you know, everything that you shared today, why it works so well with you both. There's a new segment that I've added into the podcast just in the last 6 months, I suppose. And I ask the last guest on the podcast to leave a question for the next guest. And so this question you haven't had, because I don't want guests to have the question in advance, because it's very much a what's the gut reaction, because that's the true answer. So this is the question for you that got left by the last guest. And you can answer this individually or together. But what's part of your business journey or story that you don't often get asked, but you wish you were asked?
I think I know what I'm going to say now. Because there's one thing that I'd written on my little notes down here, and I thought, I don't think I'm going to be able to weave this in. So I'm going to do that.
Do it.
So I think you sometimes don't always get asked about like your weaknesses, or like what was the biggest, like, you know, the thing that you've changed about yourself, like through business. Like it's often more about what was your biggest achievement, or what was the best, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I won't go into detail with the situation that happened. Natalie will know what I'm already going to say. But there was a work situation that I had whereby I think I was disappointed with my response to something. So an incident happened early on in my career in New Zealand. Actually, I'd come from England. I don't think we'd started Pompom at that point. I think I just started doing some contract work, and I had an incident with, I guess, a client whereby I got upset. I had an emotional response to what she was saying to me, and I actually cried in that moment. And I'm not saying that it's wrong to cry. I'm definitely not saying that. But I was disappointed, because what happened as a result of that is she kind of used it against me a little bit, in terms of that being like a weakness, you know, in me, that I'd kind of hadn't been able to keep myself professional in that moment. You know, I had cried. And I think what I really learned from that, and this is something that Natalie and I say a lot, and we practice a lot, which is we're both actually real people, and we are quite emotional people, as demonstrated by that outburst. But so we're both quite emotional people, and we're quite connected to our emotions, and we're quite in touch, I think, with other people and their emotions as well. And I think one of the things that I learned from that moment that I've carried with me to this day, and I know that Natalie has as well, is like, just sleep on it. Just take a moment, just walk away from the situation. Like if you get an email that maybe unnerves you in some way, a positive way, or a good way or a bad way, but you get an email that unnerves you, or you take a phone call that upsets you, or you have a confrontation that upsets you, right? Because when you work with people pretty much 24/7, like, you know, you're going to have moments like that. And I think one of the things that I learned was just that you need to just in that moment, you need to just walk away, and you just need to sleep on it, or pray on it, or whatever it might be. But you need to go away, and you need to take that moment, and then you need to respond. So, you know, I learned that in that moment, and I've not since. Have I felt emotional about things that have happened since then? Yes. But always I have managed to kind of take that moment and walk away on it and reflect on it, pray on it before I respond. And I know that Nats is similar in terms of, you know, we'll both say, let's just sleep on that before we reply to that email, because I think it's really important to just take the emotion out of stuff, because pour water on the fire, don't pour oil on the fire. Like, just take a moment to kind of step away and reflect on it and see it from another angle and think about the other person's perspective, and just try and get a more holistic view of it before you keyboard warrior your response, or before you have that conversation. And that has probably served me really well over the years, because you just go back with a far more rounded response, I think, to whatever the situation might be. So although the actual moment of my career was definitely not one of my favorites, it actually taught me a lesson that has probably served me very well over the years since.
Yeah.
Natalie, do you have
I didn't have one that just came to me like that,
right.
Charlotte. It was kind of cheating.
So the piece where people don't often ask you, but you wish they would ask you, is, what's your weakness?
Yeah, well, I think while you were telling that story, and I know that story, and I know we live by that. Another thing that came into my mind as you were talking is one of the other things that we live by a little bit, and so it's not a weakness, but it's you can't control other people's behavior. You can only control your own. So sometimes when you've got a situation and you want to have a reactive response, and I guess it is a weakness of mine because I can be a bit reactive, emotionally reactive. I'm sure my sisters will vouch for that in my teenage years. But it's actually like, hang on, that's how they have. How do you want to hold yourself? And you don't have to mirror how someone else is treating you or how that conversation is going. You can actually hold your own space. And that's the only thing you have control of, is your own actions. So Charlotte says it's the lesson she gives to her boys, and she said it to me for years as well. Actually, no, we can only control how we present ourselves and the actions we make, and let them do them, and that's okay. And let that lie. So, yeah.
Beautiful lessons. Wonderful takeaways. Thank you both so much for sharing today, agreeing to have this conversation. I've learned some stuff that I didn't know before. So it's been really great, and I really appreciated it. Both of you are a model on how to successfully operate a partnership in the long term. So thank you for sharing behind the scenes and what goes on and how you make that successful. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having us, Sandra.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's nice to sit and take stock and reflect.
Yeah, it is actually.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you both.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for listening to Wahine. If today's kōrero resonated with you, inspired you, or made you stop and think, I'd love for you to follow the show and share it with another wahine in business. You'll find all of the links and details from this episode in the show notes. So until next time, keep building your business your way, grounded in who you are and the legacy you're here to create. The podcast music is Te Kawa Orongo by Naneko Erawata. The episode is edited by LJS Creative Services, and the show notes and blog posts are written by Bellbird Writing.